Hello folks, I am the Bitter Clinger, and this is the first episode of Channel Resolutions for 2015. What are channel resolutions? Well, channel resolutions are a lot like New Year's resolutions, but instead of resolving to lose weight or start a new budget, I'll be making resolutions concerning video games that I own. Perhaps I'll resolve to replay some games that I found entertaining in years past, or maybe I'll resolve to uninstall some games that are no longer worth the time or money. So, like New Year's resolutions, channel resolutions are a fresh approach or a change for the better in the new year. Now, channel resolutions are different from New Year's resolutions in that I'll be working on my channel resolutions throughout the year and not just in the first 2 weeks of January. With that introduction out of the way, let's jump into the subject of this year's first channel resolution, World of Warplanes. You know, I didn't come to World of Warplanes in search of a great air combat game. The last flying game I played was called Their Finest Hour back in the late 80s, and that also happens to be the last time I had a joystick connected to my system. So I wasn't interested in any game that would require a joystick to play. I was just looking for some good public PvP fun that didn't require a huge time commitment or grind to become fairly proficient. I'm an RPG player at heart, but the problem with MMORPGs is they don't offer very competitive public PvP gameplay. Most require huge amounts of level grinding before you can even step foot into a PvP area. And then it's another grind to at least be competitively geared for PvP. I couldn't face another grind into World of Warcraft Battlegrounds after the Panda expansion, and the other game I was playing at the time, Pirates of the Burning Sea, was dying a slow and painful death. So to cut a long story short, I redeemed a closed beta code for World of Warplanes that I got from MMORPG.com, and I discovered the best competitive PvP gameplay on the market. As you know, World of Warplanes is a game that I played a lot in 2013 and 2014, but I've been playing it less and less recently. So let's review the current state of the game and what I am or am not getting out of it, and decide whether or not it's worth a continued investment of time and money. I really believe what I said. World of Warplanes offers the best competitive PvP experience available for your average pubby gamer out there. At least that's what hooked me 18 months ago. It's a fast-paced and clean experience that's very accessible to the average gamer, whether or not they've had any prior experience in air combat games. It even beats other wargaming titles in that regard, because World of Warplanes is unfettered by some of the more gimmicky mechanics that currently exist and will exist in the other WG games. The developers of World of Warplanes knocked it out of the park with the implementation of the HD client in the 1.4 patch. They have done an amazing job on this client, from appearance to performance. Now, I know there are still too many people who have trouble with client stability, but I have to tell you, World of Warplanes is the most stable wargaming client on my system. The World of Tanks client is certainly better than it was at version 9.0, but I still experience a handful of crashed desktop events each week with the Tanks client. The World of Warplanes HD client is also the best performing in terms of graphic settings and frame rate stability. It's frustrating to have your frame rate bouncing around between 25 and 55 from one moment to the next when you're playing a PvP game, and I don't have that problem with the World of Warplanes HD client. All of these things add up to make for a very fun game to play, but there have been some changes recently that detract from the overall game experience. And unfortunately, that leads us to the parts of World of Warplanes that aren't working very well, at least not for me. Now, we all know about the matchmaker and the extremely long queue times on the North American server, so I'm not going to rehash all of that. Besides, when it comes to the matchmaker, 70% of you got what you wanted. Okay, it may not be what you wanted, but many of you did ask for it. Here's a poll taken in June of last year on the World of Warplanes forums. Now, I'm not at all surprised by these results. I knew I was going to be in the minority that wanted to maintain the two-tier spread back when I posted it. But look at the question in my poll. It basically asks, do you want full 15 versus 15 battles, or do you want a one-tier spread? They're mutually exclusive. My poll is based on the presumption that the battles would be smaller and the queue times longer with a one-tier spread. I think the implementation of the one-tier spread has borne that out. Now, I also realize that the one-tier spread is not the only issue causing problems with the matchmaker, but I think the battle size and queue times have taken what appears to be a semi-permanent change for the worse, in my opinion. And that's my biggest aggravation with World of Warplanes. With most battles being 6 versus 6 or 8 versus 8, the metagame is broken. The wonderfully designed PvP game mechanics that I was just praising are broken. What made World of Warplanes an exciting PvP experience is the sum of its parts. The turn fighters dogfighting in the canyons, heavy fighters diving through the furball on strafing runs, and the energy fighters booming and zooming everything. Those days seem gone to me. The mechanics just feel broken in those small matches. I've seen the same thing in World of Tanks. Briefly, I just recently landed in a 6 versus 6 battle in the wee hours of the morning. Unfortunately, I was driving a mobile artillery piece, and artillery is all but useless in a 6 versus 6 battle. When game mechanics are designed for 15-player teams, those mechanics begin to break down at some point the further you get away from that number. We're at that point with World of Warplanes, at least on the North American server. So, it's not that you can't fly a plane and experience some air-to-air PvP combat in the low-populated battles. You can absolutely do that and still have some fun. The problem, at least for me, is that I can no longer experience World of Warplanes the way it was designed to be played. The most excellent PvP experience I had as recently as June of last year is simply not sustainable, and often not even achievable at the current population levels. All the other little quirky bugs and changes are just noise by comparison. World of Warplanes itself is what's no longer working as it was designed to work. And that's why we need to evaluate the prospect of any of these things changing in the future. I believe Wargaming is committed to World of Warplanes because they are committed to their trio of wargaming products, on land, on the sea, and in the air. I want to believe they'll take whatever steps are necessary to rehabilitate World of Warplanes at some point. It also seems like Wargaming is continuing to allocate developer resources for World of Warplanes, but I'm not sure to what extent. I mean, I've read that World of Warplanes is self-sustaining financially, but that's not necessarily good news depending on the interpretation of that statement. That could mean that no developer resources are allocated for World of Warplanes until enough revenue is generated to budget some temporary development time, thereby being self-sustaining. I mean, that's like saying your teenage children are self-sustaining with their part-time jobs, but they only eat once a day and they sleep on the streets half the month. That's not really what you're looking for in something that's self-sustaining. And that's the perception I have of the development effort on World of Warplanes. There may be some brilliant developers working on the game, and we've certainly seen some evidence of that in both the game design and client performance. But something smells here. There is something keeping these developers from maintaining a consistent level of productivity and quality over time, month after month, release after release. It seems like every patch brings us one step forward and 2 steps back with inexplicable new features and a Jenga tower of bugs. Now, I don't know if this is because the developers really are working in temporary budgeted time slots, or they can't resist feature creep, or if they just lack a good process and life cycle methodology that allows them to produce consistent and predictable results over time. Whatever the problem is, I think it's going to continue to hobble the development of this game until it's addressed, and that leaves me feeling like I'm flying solo on this game. I feel like I don't have a partner that's going to be able to meet me halfway a year down the road. And when I say halfway, I mean I invest the time and money and they provide the content and support. Like I said earlier, I want to believe that to be the case, but I have a hard time seeing it at this point. Alright, let's cut to the chase here. World of Warplanes takes up 31.3 gigabytes of disk space. That's comparable to most AAA games. Now, it's not nearly the game it used to be, but it's still fun to play, at certain tiers, at certain times of day. So, is it worth a continued investment of time and money and allocated hard drive space? These are my resolutions concerning World of Warplanes in 2015. I'll continue to play the game, sparingly, and produce video content on my YouTube channel, sparingly. I will not be spending any money or gold on the game. That means no premium shop, no pilot training, no emblems, nothing. I don't feel comfortable investing any more money into this game until I start hearing a little more positive statements from WG about its future. I will not use any free experience in World of Warplanes. I used to use all my unified free experience exclusively in Warplanes. Now it's hard to justify the investment in upgrading new aircraft with free experience when I might get to fly them in a very brief window of time each day, and in low populated battles. I will stay engaged in the development process by participating in any public test releases and create related videos highlighting significant changes. And finally, I'll continue to participate in the community. Perhaps I'll include one or two interesting forum discussions in my monthly channel update. I also may highlight other YouTube channels that are producing good World of Warplanes content, but I definitely want to stay engaged with the World of Warplanes community. It is one of the best gaming communities I've ever experienced and been a part of. So that's as far as I'm willing to go at this point. World of Warplanes has so much potential that I'm placing it in what is basically a standby mode with a commitment to keep a close eye on any future updates. Like I said, it's still a relatively fun PvP game, but it's a shadow of what it used to be. This game's allocation of hard drive space on my system is currently by my good graces rather than its own merits. So this is not going to be a very dramatic rage quit uninstall moment, but it did allow me to vent my frustrations and let you all know what to expect in the year ahead, at least concerning this channel and World of Warplanes. So let me wrap this up, this first episode of Channel Resolutions, and wish you all a great new year. This is Bitter Klinger, signing out.